The Loughinisland massacre took place on 18 June 1994 in the small village of Loughinisland, County Down, Northern Ireland. Members of the Ulster Volunteer Force, a loyalist paramilitary group, burst into a pub with assault rifles and fired on the customers, killing 6 civilians and wounding 5. The pub was targeted because it was frequented mainly by Catholics, and was crowded with people watching the Republic of Ireland team playing in the 1994 FIFA World Cup. It is thus sometimes called the World Cup Massacre. The attack was claimed as retaliation for the killing of 3 UVF members by the Irish National Liberation Army. Allegations persist that police double agents or informers were linked to the massacre and that police protected those informers by destroying evidence and failing to carry out a proper investigation. At the request of the victims' families, the police ombudsman investigated the police. The ombudsman concluded that there were major failings in the police investigation, but no evidence that police colluded with the UVF. However, the ombudsman did not investigate the role of informers and the report was branded a whitewash. Ombudsman investigators demanded to be disassociated from the report because their original findings were dramatically altered without reason, and they believed key intelligence had been deliberately withheld from them. This led to the report being quashed, the ombudsman being replaced and a new inquiry ordered. Background: the UVF's claimed goal was to combat Irish republicanism, particularly the Provisional IRA, and maintain Northern Ireland's status as part of the United Kingdom. However, most of its victims were Irish Catholic civilians, who were often killed at random. Whenever it claimed responsibility for attacks, the UVF usually claimed that those targeted were IRA members or were helping the IRA. Other times, attacks on Catholic civilians were claimed as retaliation for IRA actions. Since the IRA draws almost all its support from the Catholic population, since the mid-1960s, the UVF had carried out many gun and bomb attacks on Catholic-owned pubs and there had been many incidents of collusion between the UVF and members of the state security forces. During the early 1990s, Loyalists drastically increased their attacks on Catholics and Irish nationalists and, for the first time since the conflict began, were responsible for more deaths than Republicans or the security forces. On 16 June 1994, the Irish National Liberation Army shot dead 3 UVF members, Trevor King, Colin Craig and David Hamilton, on the Shankill Road in Belfast. The following day, the UVF launched 2 retaliatory attacks. In the first, UVF members shot dead a Catholic civilian taxi driver in Carrickfergus. In the second, they shot dead 2 Protestant civilians in Newton Abbey, whom they believed were Catholics. The Loughinisland shootings, a day later, are believed to have been further retaliation. Attack on the Heights Bar. On the evening of 18 June 1994, about 24 people were gathered in the Heights Bar and Lounge watching the Republic of Ireland versus Italy in the World Cup. At 10:10 p.m., 2 UVF members wearing boiler suits and balaclavas walked into the bar and opened fire on the crowd with assault rifles, spraying the small room with more than 60 bullets. 6 men were killed outright, and 5 other people were wounded. Witnesses said the gunman then ran to a getaway car, laughing. One described bodies lying piled on top of each other on the floor. The dead were Adrian Rogan, Malcolm Jenkinson, Barney Green, Daniel McCreanor, Patrick O'Hare and Eamon Byrne, all Catholic civilians. O'Hare was the brother-in-law of Eamon Byrne and Green was one of the oldest people to be killed during the Troubles. The UVF claimed responsibility within hours of the attack. It claimed that an Irish Republican meeting was being held in the pub and that the shooting was retaliation for the Inler attack. However, police said there is no evidence that the Heights Bar had any links to Republican paramilitary activity. Journalist Peter Taylor suggested in his book Loyalists that it was not entirely certain that the UVF brigade staff had sanctioned the attack, and that it was instead carried out by a local UVF unit. In the event of an enemy attack, these UVF units were given freedom to retaliate against what they deemed to be appropriate targets. An unnamed UVF member told Taylor that the UVF believed IRA members would be in the pub that evening. The attack received international media coverage and was widely condemned. Among those who sent messages of sympathy were Pope John Paul II, Queen Elizabeth II, and U.S. President Bill Clinton. Local Protestant families visited their wounded neighbors in hospital, expressing their shock and disgust. Provisional IRA response. The massacre ultimately led to a temporary return to tit-for-tat violence. The following month, the IRA shot dead 3 high-ranking members of the Ulster Defence Association, the other main loyalist paramilitary group alongside the UVF. It is claimed this was retaliation for the Loughinisland massacre. The IRA stated that the men were directing the UDA's campaign of violence against Catholics. On the 11th of July, the IRA shot dead Ray Smallwoods, a member of the UDA's inner council and spokesman for its political wing, the Ulster Democratic Party. 6 days later, UDA gunmen tried to repeat the Loughinisland massacre when they attacked the Hawthorn Inn at nearby Anaclone. About 40 people were inside watching the Football World Cup final. The pub's thick doors had been locked and so the gunmen instead fired through the windows, wounding 7 people. On the 31st of July, the IRA shot dead UDA commander Joe Bratty and his right-hand man Raymond Elder. Investigation and campaign by victims' families. The morning after the attack, the getaway car, a red Triumph Acclaim, was found abandoned in a field near Crossgar. On the 4th of August, one of the VZ-58 rifles used in the attack was found hidden at a bridge near Saintfield, along with a holdall containing boiler suits, balaclavas, gloves, 3 handguns and ammunition. In 2006, following claims that an IUC agent had supplied the getaway car to the gunman, the victims' families lodged an official complaint about the investigation with the police ombudsman. The complaint included allegations that the investigation had not been efficiently or properly carried out, no earnest effort was made to identify those responsible, and there were suspicions of state collusion in the murders. It was alleged that police agents or informers within the UVF were linked to the attack, and that the police's investigation was hindered by its desire to protect those informers. The victims' families also alleged that the police had failed to keep in contact with them about the investigation, even about significant developments. It was revealed that police had ordered the destruction of key evidence and documents. The car had been disposed of in April 1995, 10 months into the investigation. In 1998, police documents related to the investigation were destroyed at Gough Barracks RUC station, allegedly because of fears they were contaminated by asbestos. It is believed they included the original notes, made during interviews of suspects in 1994 and 1995. A hair follicle had been recovered from the car but nobody had yet been charged, while the other items had not been subjected to new tests made possible by advances in forensic science. It was alleged that the rifle used in the attack had been part of a shipment smuggled into Northern Ireland for Loyalists by British agent Brian Nelson. A key eyewitness claimed she gave police a description of the getaway driver within hours of the massacre, but that police failed to record important information she gave them and never asked her to identify suspects. A serving policeman later gave the woman's personal details to a relative of the suspected getaway driver. Police then visited her and advised her to increase her security for fear she could be shot. In 2008, it was revealed that, since the shootings, up to 20 people had been arrested for questioning but none had ever been charged. In January 2010, a Reserve Police Service of Northern Ireland officer was arrested by detectives from the Police Ombudsman's office and questioned over perverting the course of justice and aiding the killer's escape. Later that year, the Public Prosecution Service concluded there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. In reply, the Ombudsman's office said it would consider disciplinary action against the officer. Police Ombudsman's report and aftermath. In September 2009, it was revealed that a police ombudsman's report on the killings was to be published on 15 September. At the same time, some details of the report were made known. Police sources said the report would expose the role of 4 RUC informers in ordering or organizing the attack. The report was also said to highlight a series of major failings in the police investigation, including that not enough effort was made to identify those responsible, that police failed to speak to people of interest, that key evidence was destroyed, and that there was poor record management. However, shortly after these revelations, the Ombudsman postponed publication of the report as new evidence had emerged. The Ombudsman's report was finally published on 24 June 2011. It said that the police investigation had lacked diligence, focus and leadership, that there were failings in record management, that significant lines of inquiry were not identified, and that police failed to communicate effectively with the victims' families. However, it said that there was insufficient evidence of collusion, and no evidence that police could have prevented the attack. The report was harshly criticized for not investigating the role of RUC informers inside the UVF. Social Democratic and Labour Party leader Margaret Ritchie said the findings were flawed and contrary to a mountain of evidence of collusion. She added, "It completely lets down the victims' families and the wider community." Al Hutchinson paints a picture of an incompetent Keystone Cops type of police force when the reality was that the RUC and Special Branch were rotten to the core. Niall Murphy, the solicitor for the victims' relatives, described the report's findings as timid, mild and meek. He added, "The Ombudsman has performed factual gymnastics to ensure there was no evidence of collusion in his conclusion." The relatives stated that they believe the report proves police colluded with those involved and made no real attempt to catch the killers. After the report's publication, there were calls for Al Hutchinson to resign, and the victims' families began a High Court challenge to have the report's findings quashed. In September 2011, the Criminal Justice Inspectorate criticized Hutchinson and recommended that the Ombudsman's office be suspended from investigating historic murders, because its independence had been compromised. CJI inspectors found major inconsistencies in the Ombudsman's report. Ombudsman investigators had demanded to be disassociated from the report because their original findings were dramatically altered without reason. Ombudsman investigators also believed that key intelligence had been deliberately withheld from them. In 2012, the Belfast High Court quashed the report's findings and Hutchinson was replaced by Michael Maguire, who ordered a new inquiry into the massacre. Commemoration. On the 18th anniversary of the attack, the Republic of Ireland football team again played Italy, this time in the Euro 2012 at Poznan, Poland. The Irish team wore black armbands during the match, to commemorate those killed while watching the same teams playing 18 years before. The idea was proposed by the Football Association of Ireland and backed by UEFA. Some prominent loyalists berated the move. South Belfast UDA Brigadier Jackie MacDonald said that it was bringing politics into sport, and would lead to dire repercussions for football. Another leading loyalist, Winston Churchill Rye, also raised concerns about the tribute. However, the victims' families fully supported the gesture. On 29 April 2014, ESPN, as part of their 30 for 30 series, broadcast a documentary about the shootings, named Ceasefire Massacre.